All right, I think we'll get started now. On behalf of White & Case, I would like to thank everyone for joining us today and commend all of you for participating in the Jessup competition this year. My name is Elizabeth Black, and I'm the Director of Global Citizenship at White & Case. Before joining the firm, I was the Executive Director of the Law Students Association, the organization that administers the Jessup. So this means basically I've been involved with the Jessup for many more years than I care to admit at this point. But it was actually the Jessup that started me on my journey at White & Case. I was first hired to develop and manage the firm's Jessup activities around the world. So you can imagine my delight, first, that a firm like White & Case would actually have so many Jessup activities that needed managing, but also that I was the one lucky enough to manage them. Since then, my responsibilities have expanded, but the Jessup remains a project near and dear to my heart. This has been another extraordinary and challenging year. With all that's going on in the world, the skills, the understanding, and the respect for the rule of law that students, you all get from participating in the Jessup is really more important than ever. So I'm so happy that so many Jessup competitors are joining with us today. We have 197 students from 45 different countries around the world. So that's really exciting for all of us. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about the firm and also our history and support for the Jessup competition. White & Case is a global law firm with 44 offices in 30 different countries. It's one of the first US-based law firms that has a truly global presence, and we provide counsel and representation in virtually every area of the law that affects cross-border businesses. This year marks the 17th year of our global partnership of the Jessup competition. More than 150 of our lawyers and staff around the world support the Jessup in many different ways, from judging oral rounds to grading memorials, to administering and hosting competitions, to designing the graphics and themes that you see on posters and social media throughout the year. This year, we also sponsored 15 national and regional competitions around the world, from China to Mexico, South Africa to the UK, and many countries in between. And this happens only because we have so many wonderful Jessup alumni in nearly all of our offices. And I'm pleased today to be joined by several of our wonderful lawyers who are, in fact, Jessup alumni. And they're here to talk to you about not only their Jessup experience, but how Jessup really affected their careers. And before I get started and turn it over to them, I kind of want to explain a little bit about how this hour will work. Each one of our panelists today will be able to speak to you for a few minutes about and explain their Jessup story and their career and sort of what they do at White & Case. And after that, we will all go to breakout rooms. And so we want to give as much of opportunities for you to ask questions, get to know our lawyers, and learn more about the firm. So I encourage you to jump from room to room and ask different questions. If you go into a room and it's really crowded, go to another one and then come back. But really ask a lot of questions. Feel free to, dive into what you're interested in. We want to hear from you. At about 5 minutes to the hour, we will be moved back into the main room where we will close. With that, I will unfortunately Dipin Sabharwal he had a client conflict, and so he was unable to join us, but we are very pleased to have a Singapore partner, Aditya Singh, who is here with us today. And with that, I will turn it over to Aditya.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Welcome to all of you who are joining this session from across the globe. It's great to be with you. I want to begin by congratulating all the participants of the Jessup this year. Irrespective of the outcome, you are now part of the Jessup family. And that in itself is an important and potentially life-changing achievement. It certainly was for me. As Elizabeth said, I'm a partner at White & Case in Singapore. I specialize in international arbitration and public international law issues. And I've spent my entire career at the firm and worked in the New York, London, and now Singapore offices. But the springboard for my career in international dispute resolution was my participation in the Jessup 13 years ago. I represented India, and we were fortunate to make it to the White case championship rounds in Washington, D.C. In fact, that is when I first heard of White case, right? When you come to DC to this hotel and see all these banners and the White case name. And at that time, certainly not in the wildest of my dreams did I think that one day I would be a partner at this firm working on many of the same legal issues that we were dealing with as Jessup participants. And I think it's safe to say that the Jessup was an incredibly formative experience. It was tremendous to be able to come to Washington, D.C. from India, make oral arguments in front of some of the leading international law practitioners and academics in the world. And what the Jessup experience told me was that this is what I wanted to do in my career: use my advocacy skills and practice international law. With that in mind, I moved to the United States, completed a master's focused on international law. And while I was in law school in the US, I applied for jobs, including at the top of my list was the international disputes practice at White case. I was called in for an interview, and sure enough, some of the folks who interviewed me for an associate position had judged me in the Jessup in DC. A few months later, when I started at the firm, I was, sitting next to an associate who I had met at the Jessup in DC. So you see a pattern there, right? Today, my practice focuses on international arbitration, where I act as counsel both in commercial as well as investor state cases and appear as an advocate before international tribunals. I regularly find myself applying the same concepts in practice that I had first learned about and grappled with as a Jessup participant. For instance, a large part of my practice has over the years been representing states in international disputes. So I'm frequently looking at articles of state responsibility, which I first read as a Jessup participant. At White case, I'm also surrounded by former Jessup participants. One of my mentors at the firm is a former Jessup champion. Another partner I worked with very closely participated in the Jessup 25 years ago. The associate in our team down the hall in Singapore, who you see on the screen, Samara, is a Jessup champion from a few years ago. And that is not a coincidence. It is because the Jessup simply is, in my view, the perfect platform for launching a career in international law. And my hope is that your experience at the Jessup will be as meaningful as it has been for me, for my friends and my colleagues. With that, I wish you all the best. I look forward to answering any questions in the breakout session, and I'll hand over to my colleague, Susanna. Thank you.
Yes, thank Aditya for that great explanation. I couldn't agree more with everything you said. To start, congratulations everyone on making it this far. Powering through, it already shows a great level of perseverance that you are where you are today. And that's the first step to a legal career, perseverance, right? I judged some of the rounds this week here in DC, and I thought everybody did a great job, at least from the rounds that I saw, and I'm sure any round, the quality of the presentations was really high. The engagement with the international law issues was really high. So congratulations, everybody, on doing that. I return to the Jessup, I think, almost on an annual basis. I am now a sixth-year associate in the White case international arbitration practice. I'm located in New York. And on an annual basis, I come to DC, if perhaps not in the pandemic, to sort of engage with students. And I think it's such a valuable practice for each side of the party. It's valuable for us who are judging, because on an annual basis, we get the opportunity to really think about these issues, these really complicated, complex issues of international law with some of the greatest minds. And it's, I think, invaluable for students. For me, when I participated, I don't even know how many years ago now, it was an opportunity to first learn that this is something I can do. I can go in front of a tribunal and argue my case and explain to a tribunal on issues of international law. And I think experiencing that this field is actually something that you can practice, is a first step towards getting curious about a career in international law. Then when you do start a career in international law, I agree with Aditya, these are issues that we deal with all the time. At White & Case, we're currently representing a client in the advisory proceedings on the obligations of states with respect to climate change that are going on before the International Court of Justice, but also in parallel proceedings before the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea. And the issue of erga omnes is, for example, a very active issue. Many states argued before the International Tribunal on the Law of the Sea that the right to self-determination is an erga omnes obligation, that all states would be able to invoke climate change, a breach of the mitigation of climate change against another state on the basis of this right. States last week, by March 22nd, submitted their written statements before the International Court of Justice. So a very similar process to what you've been doing with submitting your memorial and then arguing your case. The Netherlands, for example, is arguing that the Paris Agreement sets out obligations erga omnes partes, which it probably hopes the court to adopt so that in the future, states can come up to the International Court of Justice to make arguments to get standing under the Paris Agreement, right? So these are active issues, and there's states that are actively thinking about how to argue these issues and how to advance their best position in front of the International Court of Justice. So I thought that was interesting to let you know. And it's not only the issue, but it's also the people that you meet at Jessup. My colleague, Eckhard Helbeck, who's on the call and who will be in the breakout rooms, he judged me during the Jessup, which was great fun. I met him at a White & Case reception after, and now the two of us are working on this case together, and we're working together every day on issues before the International Court of Justice. So safe to say that when you're participating in the Jessup and you keep going in international law, it will all come back to you. So now I will give it over to my next colleague.
Thanks, Suzanne. Hi, everyone. Like my colleague said earlier, again, congratulations to all of you for having argued the same 4 questions 200 times or more. That's a valuable and memorable experience. I certainly thought so when I was doing the Jessup. I represented the National University of Singapore in the Jessup competition in 2011. We won the Baxter Prize for Best Memorial, were the top-seeded team in the preliminary rounds, and were then unceremoniously dumped out of the quarterfinals. So following the Jessup, and after graduating from the NUS and NYU, where I did my master's, I returned to Singapore to clerk at the Supreme Court. And through this time, I had such dreams and ambitions of being a top-tier litigator, to argue in the most significant cases globally. And I'm very happy to report to everyone that none of those dreams or ambitions came true, because I now do private equity and M&A at White & Case. I'm a partner in the Hong Kong and Singapore offices. I practice in Beijing, Hong Kong, and Singapore. I read financial statements much better than I do cases, treaties, or statutes. And I can't think of a practice that's better suited to my intellectual makeup and personality set. So I love what I do. And I would encourage you to find that practice, be it international arbitration, M&A, capital markets. Find that thing that's best suited to your individual personal intellectual makeup and personality set, because that's going to be the least energy expensive practice for you, and you'll love doing it. And the next sort of recommendation that I would have for all of you is enjoy arguing the same 4 questions 200 times, 300 times, because never again in your career will you do this. You'll never again spend 6 months thinking about the same 4 questions over and over again from a million different angles. That's going to build, a kind of discipline and intellectual rigor in you that, you can't replicate anywhere else. So again, congratulations, and I'll pass it over to Kirsten.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you all here today. As you heard, my name is Kirsten Odynski, and I am a partner in the International Arbitration Group in Paris. Though I competed for 16 years ago now when I did the Jessup, much like all of my colleagues on this call, I did the Jessup. I represented the University of Ottawa in Canada. And so where I sort of want to start my remarks today is I echo and agree with everything my colleagues said. But now that you've all done the Jessup, which is a huge accomplishment in and of itself, having, completed the pleadings, completed the written pleadings, and completed the oral pleadings, is when you go home to think about how this can really jumpstart your career. For me, it was a pretty formative moment doing the Jessup. I hadn't at that point in time really thought seriously about practicing law outside of Canada, where I was from. I hadn't really seriously thought about the various types of careers that you could have in international law. And so I think for me, the Jessup gave me an opportunity to meet competitors, my competitors, judges, colleagues, and other individuals in international law that really inspired me to sort of think about just how great my career could be. And I would encourage you all to do the same once you've had a chance to rest, of course, is to think about reflect on, what you enjoyed about this experience. For me, I had the opposite experience. It confirmed for me that I wanted to be in disputes. I didn't want a transactional practice, which is something I had been thinking about before. So I would encourage you to think about that. And then I would encourage you to reflect on the people that you've met and whether they're doing something you might want to try, and whether they have some sort of they've studied something or done something that's very interesting to you. Just like my colleagues, the Jessup introduced me to White & Case and to other large international firms. So if that's something you're interested in, I would encourage you to hold on to the people you've met and keep in touch with them and keep these conversations going. And the last thing I wanted to say is that the Jessup's actually really stayed with me throughout my career. So I would just encourage you to keep being involved. Much like Suzanne, I come back and I judge. I've been involved in coaching teams. I've had opportunities to travel the world, literally, in connection with the Jessup. And with White & Case's involvement in the Jessup. So I would encourage you to think of ways that you can support your national competitions, of continuing to come back to the international competitions, because I find the people that I meet and the issues that we treat, as you've heard from my colleagues, really are real life. These are issues we grapple with every day. The problems are real and contemporary. And the individuals involved are clients and colleagues and will be for life. So I'll leave it there and pass it off to Ron to summarize or to bring this discussion to an end. I don't want to put too much pressure on you, Ron.
Thank you, Kirsten. Well, having been a Jessup competitor and a White & Case lawyer, I certainly am familiar with pressure. My name is Ron Kendler. I'm a counsel in our international trade group at White & Case. I started in the firm's Geneva, Switzerland office and have been in the Washington, D.C. office for the last almost decade now. I competed in the Jessup in 2012, and it to this day remains the most cherished memory and experience of my legal education. And as you've heard from all the other colleagues on this call, I can draw a direct line from my Jessup experience to my current professional situation. My professional focus is related to, but it's not a direct overlap with the Jessup. I do practice a form of international law, international trade law, both before international tribunals, the World Trade Organization and regional free trade agreement bodies, as well as U.S. government agencies, including the Department of Commerce, International Trade Commission, and then federal courts that hear appeals from those agencies. And the line I can draw with the Jessup to my practice today, in part, is the diversity of audiences in front of which I advocate. The Jessup, of course, draws judges who are experts in international law, but from all various backgrounds, academia, legal practice, and then different forms of law, international and not. And it really enables you to get a sense of not only what you're arguing, but to whom you are arguing it. You have to tailor those arguments to the different audiences that read and hear your written and oral presentations. And that has been absolutely crucial in my legal practice. Of course, then there are always, like with other colleagues on this call, the times where I'll be sitting working on a case and the Vienna Convention on the law on treaty interpretation will come up and we're arguing articles of how to interpret certain elements of international treaties. And no matter the time has passed, I feel like I'm back in law school with my Jessup teammates. So there's the substance element, there's the skill element, and that really is, I think, what the Jessup is most useful for. The written advocacy, the oral advocacy, the ability to think on your feet and think through problems. I won't go so far as to say disagree with TY, but I will say that, if you work on a case for years and years and you're appealing it up an appellate chain, you do get a chance to think about the same 4 or 5 or 6 issues from 100 different angles. And sometimes it can be as rewarding or as frustrating as the Jessup competition when real life judges do or don't agree with you. So it's really just lessons for a legal career, for working with passionate colleagues in your area of law, and ultimately making the connections that last a lifetime. At the risk of repeating what others have said, please do stay involved with the Jessup. It is literally an international community. And for me, one of the joys of being in our DC office is every year getting to judge the international rounds and seeing people from all around the world with whom I've made connections. So once again, congratulations on participating in this incredible event, and best of luck as you continue your legal education and embark upon your legal careers.
Thank you so much, Ron, and everybody for your remarks. It's always interesting to learn about how it's not just one career that, the Jessup skills and that you learn can sort of take you through. So now it is time for everyone to go to breakout rooms and to ask questions of our lawyers, to learn about each other. We want to hear from you. And in the breakout rooms, not only will you have these wonderful panelists, but you will also be joined by other White and Case lawyers who are also Jessup alums, and they'll be able to tell their stories. And so I encourage you to ask a lot of questions. You will see the list of breakout rooms at the bottom of your screen. So please select one, move around. We just want you to meet all of us. So let's go to our breakout rooms now, and then we will come back at 5 minutes to the hour. Okay, I think everyone should be back in the main room at this point. So just a huge thank you to everyone for coming today. I hope you enjoyed talking to our lawyers. I know they enjoyed talking to you. I understand we had a lot of activity and questions, and so that's really great. I wanted to give you a little bit more information on ways you can find out about White and Case and working for White and Case. Just a couple of resources. We have a really good career site that can be found on our career page at www.whitecase.com/careers. And then to learn more about the firm from our people, like videos, you can go to inside.whitecase.com. And then in some parts of the world, we have what we call virtual learning programs. And so this is a really good opportunity to find out more about what it's like to work as an associate at White and Case. It's a great way to also expand your skills and knowledge, and you can find out about these opportunities on our US and UK career sites. One last thing about the Jessup, if you're interested in watching the final round, it's going to be live streamed. It's tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to go to the live stream, it can be found on ilsa.org, on the ILSA website. So I think Mohammed has a question. Well, Mohammed, I see your hand raised. If you want to reach out to me.
I believe the meeting is about to end, so there won't be any opportunity for further questions, I believe. Or is there any?
Well, if you want to reach out to me, my email address is eblack@whitecase.com, and I'm happy to answer your questions. But for now, okay, perfect. So I just want to echo one last thing for that really has been a comment throughout everyone's remarks, is to really stay involved in the Jessup in any way that you can. It is such, as Aditya said, it really is a community. And so come back as a judge, come back as if you have the opportunity to participate again, but just find ways to stay involved, because it's a fantastic way to enrich not only your professional life, but also your personal life. Huge thank you to all the lawyers who joined. Really, really appreciate it. And thanks to all of you, all the participants, and good luck with the rest of your careers. So thank you.